Welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 1st of August. Don't think about that too much. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Friedman. I thought it was May.
And I'm Jessie Stevens.
On today's agenda, just how rotten is your brain after years of attention nibbling, scrolling? We've got a cure.
It's cooked.
And the brutal essay that I haven't stopped thinking about, the thing in your life you're struggling with, well, what if you're actually not trying that hard to fix it?
But first, in case you missed it, a woman called Erin Punton, who's 22, from Northumberland, I think that's in England.
Northern England, yep.
Okay.
It's down my way, sort of.
She has been forced to bleach her whole house after discovering that a seagull she drunkenly carried home from a night out had bird flu.
Oh, dear.
no.
Oh, dear.
Any questions?
Very many questions.
I like how in the script it said drunk woman takes seagull home. And I was like, is that me as personal news?
That's
I just
personal
went
news.
straight onto it and I was like, this is interesting.
That would be great.
She says that she had no idea why, but she picked up the bird without even a thought.
Have you seen the TikTok of it?
From outside of Wetherspoons pub. Here's a little bit of the TikTok that she made at the time she just flipped her camera around and posted this to TikTok.
Since I come on home, well, my body's been
Bit of Baby Winehouse, that's important.
Hey, look at him, man. He's a beauty. He actually wants to stop my room.
Okay, so yes, Holly, well picked. The song she's singing is Valerie by Amy Winehouse. I don't know, maybe she decided that the bird should be called Valerie. She has this seagull, which is the size of a small dog.
Yes.
Under her arm. Do
Well
they have
fed.
seagulls that big?
Well, they'd be eating a lot of chips, these seagulls, if they're hanging around outside the pub at the right time
It's
on
enormous.
a Friday night. You're getting a lot of chips. Also, that accent, that northeastern accent, mwah, chef's kiss.
It
No
makes
notes.
everything funny.
So the seagulls, in case you're worried about cruelty to animals, the seagull is very happily under her arm. Like it reminded me of that episode of And Just Like That when Carrie had the pigeon bag, except it was a real seagull and it was enormous.
Someone's like, excuse me, is that Balenciaga?
So she carried the seagull home and she was baffled to find it flying around her living room the next morning. She said, I don't even know what made me pick him up. I put him in my sitting room with a blanket. When I woke up in the morning, I'd forgotten and he was just floating around the sitting room. I dropped him off at the vet's the next day in a box and was told he had bird flu.
Maybe that's a clue to why he was a little bit sleepy and allowed himself to be
I
picked up. He
know.
wasn't feeling great. He thought you were going to take him home, give him a lemsip and put him into bed.
My first reaction was this bird flu-ridden seagull is better than some of the things I have taken home after a drunk night out. Because I've woken up and gone, you have something worse than bird flu, get out of my house. I read an essay over the weekend that on the surface posited quite a simple idea, but I have not stopped thinking about it. Kate Hall published a Substack piece called Maybe You're Not Actually Trying. And she begins by telling this story about a stalker she had years ago. And after a particularly bad experience with this stalker, she writes, enough, I thought, and snapped into action, except that I didn't. Instead, I curled up in a ball and cried and told friends who suggested contacting the police that there was no point, that no one would be able to help. In the end, it was her husband who contacted all the right people and boom, sorted it all out. Now, this isn't to minimise stalking, and it's an imperfect example because for a lot of people it is a really, really difficult thing to address. But the reason she used this example was because she said, why did it take another person getting involved for me to realise I wasn't actually trying? And she goes on to nut out this idea of selective agency in capable people and how there are three theatres in our lives. So we've got work, say we've got relationships, and there's other. And she says that we all know of the high-achieving boss who can't seem to hold down a relationship, or the person at work who will throw everything at a complex problem and fix it, and yet they're feeling ill but won't take the first step of going to the doctor, right? And her suggestion is that we all assume that there's some area of our lives where we are, without realising it, frozen in time, and she challenges us to locate it. Mia, do you relate to this?
I also read this essay and was really struck by it because the most interesting part of the story is about when she thinks about it later. There's a period of time from when it starts happening. It goes on for years that this person's essentially stalking her and emailing her. And it's years later when it sort of escalates that her husband says, please, can you let me get involved? And he sorts it out. And what she realizes is that the time in her life when he first came in, she was at a very different time in her life, and she felt that she wasn't capable of it. And she sort of got frozen in that, and she didn't realize that several years down the track, she was in a much better position to deal with it, but she got stuck into that headspace of, I can't.
It's an unfixable problem.
It's an unfixable problem. And I really relate to this idea of everything's ruined, nothing can fix it.
Yeah.
Like I will sometimes get like that, and the only way I can describe how it feels inside is that I do feel about 6 or 7 years old or even younger, and I'm stamping my foot and I'm like, it's all ruined. I can't.
I thought about what it was in my life, that what am I not actually trying at, and yet I'm putting a lot of effort in, but I'm not actually trying. Like I'm not really workshopping this problem.
Yeah.
And I wondered if there was a clue for all of us in our word of the year. If our word of the year is often the thing that we've not actually, that we value, but we've actually not tried at. So mine is creativity. I've been talking about it all year. I talk a big game about how I'm going to be really creative.
Yes.
There's this Simpsons quote that says something like, we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. That's my approach to creativity. Have I done anything? No, but I'm going, I just can't, I guess, how will I write a book? What am I going to do? Have you tried, like I virtually tried nothing, but the helplessness of it, I'm quite stuck in.
Do you think that sometimes, because there have been years when we've all done our word of the year and we've really failed, do you think that's about just outsourcing our word of the year and not trying, but going, I've made it my word of the year so it'll magically happen?
It's sorted.
Yeah.
My word of the year is nup, so I don't actually have to nup anything. It's already done.
Yeah.
I think that's a very true, very good insight, Jessie. I'm really interested in this idea of high agency individuals and low agency individuals, because I immediately can pick people in my life. Now, I know that this is because she said, as you've said, Jessie, think about the different theatres, as she calls them, relationships, work, and then she says kind of self-care. And what she means by that is not massages and stuff, but
It's like health, yeah.
Therapy, exercise, you know, like eating well, like looking after yourself. So think about those 3 areas. You might be high agency in one, but not in others, but there are definitely people who are just more high agency. So she says the definition of these 2 broadly are: high agency individuals are proactive, see themselves as shapers of their own destiny, and actively work to overcome obstacles. Mia, I think you are pretty high agency. You're like, when I come to you with a problem, you're like, do this and this and this. And I'm like, okay. Low agency individuals tend to be more passive, reactive, and feel a greater sense of helplessness or external control over their circumstances. So when you kind of go, well, you know, it's just complicated and I just can't, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like the difference between me and my friend Penny, for example, who I will talk about like, oh, we need to get a new bathroom or something. I'll probably talk about that for 2 years. And in the first 3 sentences of me saying that, she's already packed up her bathroom, called the builder, got 25 tile samples, like, you know, whatever it is, right? Like whatever little things. Is your bias to action or is your bias to pondering? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
I do. I think, to your point, I think I am sometimes too high agency because I just also want to fix everybody else's problems, which is like can be quite controlling. I get exasperated by people who are low agency. And I'll give you an example. I think a really good indicator of high agency, low agency. I'm so baffled by people who don't get their driver's license, because to me, that's the ultimate in agency, is being able to drive.
I think you're exactly right. But do you know how old I was when I got my license?
How old?
Like late 20s.
What?
Yeah.
Not late 20s. I knew you before that.
I reckon you met me before I had a driver's license.
Are you serious?
No. No.
To me, I put
It
people
was
without driver's
insurmountable.
licenses in a particular basket of, I'm going to be harsh and say victims. I don't really mean that, but passivity. Like, I've got no agency in my life.
Yeah.
Help me
That's
understand.
so funny, but I think it is a good example, although you could put a lot of circumstances in that. Do you live near good public transport?
Can you afford a car?
Can you afford a car?
All that,
Like all of those things. But I get what you mean, though. You're not driving. You're literally not driving yourself. You are relying on other people to drive you, whatever that looks like. That is definitely true.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting how you can be high agency in some areas. Because if you think about those theatres of work, relationships, self-care, in work, I do try hard. Like I get most things done. I take on more projects. I do what I want.
You're very high agency with work.
Not always like really effectively like that. I'm a bit of a procrastinator at times, but I do a lot. But then say, how long have you guys been listening to me talk lately? I mean, over the years, you've heard me talk about many things, the fringe, but like about how I'm going to like embrace exercise this year again, because I've been through phases where I really have, or meditation or whatever. Like I bang on and on and on. I've got to look after myself more. Got to look after myself more.
Remember you were buying a new car for like 6 years.
Yes. Like I can be very low agency, whereas so even though I'm supposed to be looking after myself better, I'm like putting off doctor's appointments because I haven't got time for that and I didn't get that test they needed. And you know what, I'll just let that roll. So her theory would be that something that side of myself is stuck somewhere and it needs unsticking, whereas the work side of myself is not stuck. It's in motion. It's in
Jessie, same with
forward
you.
motion.
I don't think you can work in digital media, or certainly you can't be successful in digital media without having high agency, because there's not a lot of time to just sit around and wait for something to happen. You've got to make it happen or get left behind.
I think it's probably that your energy is finite and that we spend it in ways that might not be conscious or chosen, but that a lot of people are incredibly effective at work and are not so effective when they walk in the door at home. But I think that a piece of this puzzle is learned helplessness, right? So that's a psychological concept that sort of suggests that if you've had a series of negative life events happen, particularly in childhood, you begin to think that your self-efficacy that basically you have no bearing on the world around you. So I remember we learnt in psychology about this experiment that they did with an elephant, and they got the elephant and put ropes around the elephant's ankle when the elephant was a baby, and it would struggle and struggle and struggle. And eventually, even when it got really, really big and it was a grown-up elephant, and one struggle, it would have been released from this rope. But by that point, it had stopped trying, because it was just like, I'm stuck to this rope. This is what my life is like. So,
that's sad. That's like the Romanian orphans who don't cry because they know that no one's coming.
Exactly right. So there's a piece of this puzzle which is about negative life experiences, about things like domestic violence. I think when you go, are you trying? There's an element of, why are you still in that relationship? Why are you, which is a really complicated.
Yeah, so it's the wrong way to pick up this piece of information about like, are you really trying? Is not to go, all the problems in your life are your fault because you're not trying. It's much more complicated than that.
Oh, yeah.
But on a sort of simple high level of things that we know that at other times in our life when we have applied ourselves to it in the same way, that the same manner that we'd bring to an area where we have high agency, we can shift the dial.
Yeah, like I felt as though I was at a particular place in my the kind of late teens, 20s, where I had that sort of propensity towards depression. And in times in my life when I've been particularly anxious and depressed, this is the first thing I go to. No problem is solvable.
Yeah.
I just throw my arms up.
It's a feeling of overwhelm.
Yes. And
But
it's learned helplessness.
you're saying more than overwhelm. It's helplessness and hopelessness.
Yeah. And it is that, like, and the correlation between learned helplessness and depression is, I mean, they're like the same thing, which is if you walk around the world thinking you have no impact, it's probably healthier to think you have more of an impact on the world than you actually do. That your choices, it's like there are two types of people who think that their choices will have a real bearing on what happens in their lives and the world.
That's what I think.
And in fact, apparently the older you get, a lot of older people start to fall into the learned helplessness, because I think they look at their lives and go, I don't really have that much control.
I remember being in a terrible relationship, an abusive relationship, and I held all the cards. It was so weird because on paper, I had all the agency. He was living in my apartment. He was driving my car. I had the job. He was unemployed. He was a drug addict. I wasn't. I had family support and friends, and he didn't. And yet he did such a number on me over a couple of years that I had this learned helplessness and hopelessness to the point where I didn't feel like I had any agency. And I remember a close girlfriend of mine said, kick him out, change the locks, get the cleaners in, and get him out of your life. And that felt like an
Yes.
impossible thing to say. And it wasn't ironically until he went overseas and I had that space from him that I was able to end it. But then years later, I saw her in the same situation and I said the same thing to her and she couldn't recognize it and she couldn't do it.
This is really interesting about what people telling you, because one of the things that is written in this newsletter is she says, apply yourself to like in the areas where you know you're low agency, but you could be high agency. You know what I mean? Not necessarily for complex reasons. How have I done my best to come up with a set of potential solutions using all the resources I have? Am I doing as well by myself as I would by any friend who came to me with the same problem? So you know how people often say that to you, like, what would you say to a friend in this situation? And it's an interesting thought experiment. But it's not so much a personality type as your story just shows as where you are in that moment, because your friend had all the answers until it was her problem.
Yeah.
And then she needed you to have all the answers. And although you might not act with high agency in that moment, you might file it away and get there.
What your friend did is really, I think, like the bedrock of therapy, right? Is that you feel like you're stuck with all these positions and you can sit there and someone might, and the therapist who often leads you to your own conclusions because they ask questions, but it might get to a point where it's like, oh, well, I could leave my job. And it's like, yeah, you could, you know what I mean? Like it kind of leads you to a point of choice rather than rumination, which
I had a
everyone gets
therapist
stuck in.
who once called it a thought trap. That idea of because kids can get into this a bit where it's just like, no, but I can't. We'll try it. No, but I can't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not kids. Maybe it's certain type of people. But I also back to what you said about childhood. I think it can go both ways, because I think if all your needs get met as a child, then you can just feel like it's out of your control and someone else will meet them. But at the same time, if your needs don't get met, you learn, well, I have to do it myself. So I better have agency or I'm going to be screwed. What an interesting essay. We will put a link to it in the show notes.
Justice for bitches who didn't get their license till late in life.
Absolutely.
I would like the out louders to tell me, because there's a particular type of person and for some reason they're my people.
Brain rot. It's everywhere. So brain rot is two things, actually. It's a term bandied about by young people like my son, who's 13, as like a word for a lot of content that they consume, a lot of sort of pointless, very online content. So for a while there, when like Skibbity Toilet was the biggest thing that Gen Alphas were saying, that was brain rot, right? But it's also...
So it's different to hate watching.
It's a very different hate watching. They love it. Yeah. It's an actual genre. So it's a deliberate... So it's got sort of a few different meanings, but brain rot is an actual sort of genre of content that like kids will watch on YouTube and they'll say,
yeah, this is brain rot.
This is brain rot.
An example, not a kid, Luca will often show me TikToks of an AI Yeti doing a day in life, and I feel it poison my soul. Every time I see it, I go, this isn't good.
So it's something that's completely pointless.
It is.
Dumb.
But
weird.
also it's a thing that happens to us. Like not literally, the scientists aren't entirely like in on the fact that it's literally happened to us, but it's a term that we now use for what's fractured our attention spans, what means we can't read books anymore, what means we spend hours, somehow we feel involuntarily, talking of low agency, high agency, scrolling TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or whatever it is that is your thing.
It feels like dirty in your brain.
Yeah. And that we feel as we're doing it, and we know it's mindless, we know it's shallow, surface and silly, and it's slowly, slowly eroding our ability to focus deeply. So we might then use it as like, I've got brain rot. Does it sound familiar to you both?
Oh, yeah.
How far gone do you think your brains are before I tell you the tricky steps to getting it back?
Very, very far. Most of what I consume is making me dumber. And I have tried a few things to fix it, so I'm interested to see if they are the same.
What do you watch, or what do you waste time on, Mia, that would be you would consider brain rot?
To me, it's less of a particular type of content than jumping, like
From the medium itself.
from jumping,
Yes.
jumping, just scrolling, jumping.
So I think it's like there was this great article about compression culture, which was this idea that we're trying to get information as compressed as possible, that it's inefficient to think. And so I reckon it's the 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And the other day I stopped on a video of a cake and it was being decorated by a tennis racket. And they were just doing these spraying and I watched it to see the final result. They took it off. It was just sludge. There was no point to it.
Exactly. And it's like I'll start off by scrolling going, oh, I'm going to look for like gardening whatever. But then 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, I'm watching someone do a dance and then I'm watching somebody teach someone else how to do a dance and then so it's just
And what I find
nonsense.
then is that I've trained my brain to do these snippets and then I sit down to read a piece in the New York Times that's really meaty and I feel my brain go, nah, and pull myself away from it.
Do you do that thing of I'll save that for later, I'll save that for later, I'll save that for later? I have a question though. What's the difference between brain rot or the act of rotting your brain and just watching something that's kind of mindless and soothing?
I think soothing is a bit different, although we could argue that all of this is self-soothing in a way. But I think the idea is that it is eroding our ability to think more deeply.
So for example, something that I am watching a lot on TikTok is ballerinas being fitted for or breaking in their ballet shoes.
That's
It's
probably
very
brain.
specific. There's no point to it. They're not dancing. They're not actually dancing with their shoes. There's nothing artistic about it. They're just being fitted for shoes or they're breaking in the shoes or sewing on the ribbons, and I'm mesmerised.
Yeah, I watch people endlessly packing lunches. I don't pack lunches. Anyway, whatever. A Substack called Plum Pits spelled out brilliantly recently. We'll link to it. But the writer set out on a path to help us unrot our brains, because her kind of point was there are lots of people who maybe did degrees, only one at this table, but have studied things in depth, have applied themselves, talking about are you trying hard, have applied themselves with a lot of agency and focus to certain things in their lives, who now feel like they just can't because of the brain rot. And she sets out a path in this to remember who you were before the dullness set in, which I totally get what she means about that. So just to warn you, there will be losses to doing this. If you do set on this path to restore your brain to its pre-rot status, you may not be the first to know about the next Coldplay cheating meme. You may not be fully across all the details of, I don't know, Timothée Chalamet's latest jaunty scarf. Like, you have to sacrifice a little. There's a cost,
It's going
right?
to be hard to sit at this table.
I know, right? But if you're feeling a little bit sick about all the nonsense you're inputting, here's her advice. Don't quit. I like this. She's like, don't quit all those things, but just pause. She's like, for at least 3 days, set yourself a challenge that whenever you feel the itch to pick up and just mindlessly scroll, don't. Push through that urge just once, just twice, or set aside some time when you're allowed to do it, but you've got to push through the urge. Like when you're giving up smoking and you're like, I want a cigarette, well, do something else. I want a cigarette, well, do something else. Like that, right? Let your dopamine system stop firing like a broken vending machine, she writes, and allow your prefrontal cortex to actually breathe. And while you're at it, she adds, stop asking ChatGPT every little thing. You know more than you think. Well,
I don't.
That's a good.
I actually agree with that. I don't think ChatGPT is good for the brain rot.
Let yourself be bored. Mia, you struggle with this. Let yourself sit in silence, she says. No phone, no music, no stimulation, just 10 or 15 minutes of mental stillness a day.
Ew.
She says if you struggle with it a lot, try what they call the Navy SEAL nap if you need structure to it. Lie on the floor, feet up on the couch, 20 minutes max.
20?
It's not max, so it doesn't have to be. It's not lazy, it's neurological recovery.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Could we do that? Navy SEAL nap?
Yep.
Okay. Start writing. I mean, we do write, but like notes, app, paper, words. She says, let yourself ramble, write something ugly and tangled and undeveloped, not to produce or sound intelligent, but to hear yourself again. Oh, I love that.
I love that.
You know how Liz Gilbert writes herself a letter from God every morning? I don't know if you listen to Liz Gilbert. If you listen to her content, you know this. And I used to hear her say that and be like, are you God? Like, I was very confused.
Yeah.
But that's what she's doing. She's like,
To hear
every
herself
morning,
again, yeah.
hear yourself. What are you, like, if you're not thinking this is going to be published, I'm going to show this to someone. This is like, what would you
Because we're
say?
quietening through all of these things, the inner monologue. Like, I think it starts to become crowded with all the things you're inputting.
It's true, because it's just social media is just, and the internet is everybody else's monologue, outer monologue. And so you're right, you do lose touch with what you think.
Your monologue starts taking on their monologue.
Oh.
Yeah.
Learn something that fascinates you. Pick a topic, anything, become obsessed.
Gwyneth, yes. Okay.
That's
tick.
my PhD.
Yeah.
And read. But she says read with curiosity and out of your comfort zone. So if it helps, if you need a challenge, do something like 5 books in 2 months, 1 fiction, 1 nonfiction, 1 reread, 1 wild card, 1 deep dive into something niche. What do you think about this?
I think the solution is reading. I think reading fixes everything.
I can't though.
Well, this is the problem, because when you're suffering from brain rot, and this happens to me often, one of my first signals that my brain isn't happy is I can't read. Right?
I try every book that you guys recommend. I started The Nightingale. I started The Safe Keep. Maybe
Man,
stop
you've gotta-
recommending
You know what?
period
Can I ask
dramas.
you how you do it, how you try and get into them?
Kindle.
But do you like set yourself a time frame?
No, I'm always aware that the first few chapters are going to be horrific of any book, because I just hate that feeling. I love the feeling of
Being
I'm in it. And that feeling just isn't coming anymore.
You know how we were talking about actually trying?
Wow.
I reckon that if you went to the gym and every time you tried to do a squat you couldn't because you were so weak, then you'd start at a lower level or whatever and you'd just work your way up, right? And I reckon that it is exactly like a muscle. I completely relate. I've had this issue lately. The more I fragment, there's a term that this person who spent years at Apple and Microsoft, her name is Linda Stone, she called it continuous partial attention. And I think what reading demands, unlike pretty much any other activity we do, is total focus for a long period, and the feeling of flow when you lose sense of time is just a dream. Like, that's the best thing. But in order to get there, I think you've got to be like, whether it's I'm going to read for 10 minutes or whatever, I think you've just got to keep trying night after night. I found with a few of those books that it took me a few goes to sit down and do it. And in fact, I'm actually going to argue against the 10 minutes because I think often you've got to do longer.
Yeah, I actually think, because 10 minutes is a thing that I did when I was first trying to break out of one of those periods. And I'd be like, I can commit to 10 minutes. I'd set a timer on my phone and I'd read. And then what you want to do is the alarm goes off and you go, oh, shut up. Like, I'm in it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does take longer. So the other thing I sometimes do, and I think I've talked about this before, is like mark it out as half an hour.
Yeah.
At some point in the day when I can do half an hour and go, that is reading time. I'm not stealing that time from anything else. And again, set a timer. Like, it sounds so silly because they sound like scientific ways to get you to do something you don't want to do. And we all love reading. Yeah. But it's just a brain.
I've got another trick.
Shift.
Because I have started reading on the weekend and I'm really into it. Sally Hepworth's new book.
It's
called
so
Mad Mabel.
Good.
And two things. Interestingly, I'm reading it on paper.
Same.
And
Paper
maybe
makes a
that's
big
helping.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you read on an internet-enabled device, you're fucked.
Yeah.
There's just no coming back from that. But the other thing that I've learnt to do is put my phone in a different room.
Yes.
Like if I can reach my phone, it's all over, or any device, it's all over. But if I'm there just with a book or my Kindle on airplane
that's
mode.
what I have to do when I'm writing. And so do lots of other like novelists that I thought were, obviously they just slip into a flow state, is put the phone in a part of your house where you can't hear it for a period of time. Like most of us have responsibilities. You're going to have to go and check it, But again, you set a timer on something else for 30 minutes. Phone is elsewhere.
There's all this brain imaging about what happens when you read, and how you read the word tennis and you visualize, and actually parts of your body feel the tennis, right? Like and the way it fosters empathy and nuance, and you dive back into a book, and how remarkable is it that your brain can pick up I always find this when I'm in a really good state is that I dive back in, I read one sentence and go, whoa, where am I? Who is this person? And then boom, you're back in. And the fact that your brain is able to do that, the complexity, the holding all of those things at once is the opposite to what the culture forces us to do otherwise. And so I feel like it's so rehabilitated. Like when I go on holidays, that's what I want to do because I know it makes me feel like genuinely refreshed.
No one feels refreshed after scrolling the internet.
No, never.
It is another newsletter. We've been recommending a lot of newsletters today. This one is by a friend of the pod and friend of us, Lucy Ormond. We've recommended her Substack before. It's called A Year of Healing. She was diagnosed with breast cancer about a year ago, and she has dedicated this year after completing her treatment to just getting back on track. And she writes this beautiful newsletter, which we'll link to in the show notes. But while you were away, Hole, she sent one out about you. And it's about how people responded in all different ways to her news, and people dropped over lasagnas and came to chemo with her. But you, as one of her closest friends, couldn't do that. You lived not only in a different city but a different state. So what you just started to do was to send her these glimmers, like little photos every day. Can you tell us how this came about? Because she talks about you did this every day for a year, and she shared in this newsletter some of the photos that you sent and some that she sent back to you. How did it happen?
It's funny because I feel like uncomfortable about this, obviously, but also because it seems like such a little thing. But I think that actually the sending of glimmers is something really useful to do when you can't do anything else. Do you know what I mean? So Luce, because she's amazing in many ways, she was going through the worst time of her life, but she actually has a really good support network. She has a very close family. She has a strong network of really great old established friends. And everybody was doing lots of things for her. Not that made it easy, of course, but it certainly lightened the load. But I'm far away. And also, if I'm incredibly honest, I'm not the bring a lasagna friend. I don't know how I'm wired or whatever, but I find that kind of thing quite hard. And I find it hard to know what the line is between intruding and helping. And I don't know, I just struggle with that. So for me, selfishly for me, the glimmers, and I think we talked about them on a show.
We did.
We talked about the idea of looking for moments in your day that made you happy, grateful. I mean, grateful has become a cheesy kind of word, I guess, but instead of looking for triggers, look for glimmers was the story that I think we talked about on the show. So I said to Luce, I'll send you might want to vomit. I think I wrote something like that. This might want to make you vomit, but every day I'm going to send you a glimmer, and you don't have to send one back, but you can if you want. And so what I did is for every day, something would happen. In my day, I'd have to look for one thing to send a picture to for Lucy. And it might be from my morning walk. It might be a particularly good cup of tea. It might be a cucumber I'd grown in my garden. It might be my dog. It might be this show. It might be a new lipstick. It might be a book I was reading. But one thing in every day that was a bright spot.
Did it feel like pressure to find something every day?
Well, what it felt like after a while is it was as good for me as it was for Luce, because I trained myself to look every day for something, like without wanting to sound really cheesy, but something wonderful, something very ordinary but wonderful. And some days are harder than others, as we all know, to find a glimmer in, right? Because some days are shit or some days are just boring.
Did you store them? Like if you saw 3 glimmers in a day?
No, the rules were, Mia, it had to be from the day.
I'm trying to game the system.
Yeah, had to be from the day. So
did you have to explain the glimmer?
No. So some days I did. Some days I exclaimed the glimmer, but some days it's literally just the photo with the word glimmer. And then the beauty of this, for anyone who's thinking of doing it for someone who's going through a hard time, is it's a lot. We all want to be in touch with our friends when they're suffering, but it can actually be a big burden for them to have to constantly update everybody. So like asking, how are you today? How's the treatment going? How do you feel? Are you feeling sick?
Or what can I do?
Yeah, it's a burden, right? Luce had a lot going on, and so this is an offering without an expectation of receiving, although Lucy did frequently send them back. So then we would go a period of time where we were like in a volley of sending them back and forward, and I'd know that Lucy was in quite a good space, and then there'd be a few days where I'd send a glimmer and not get one back, and I'd be like, So then I might be like, yeah, okay. Like, but I think that's the beauty of it, is it doesn't place expectation, and that's an important thing. Anyway, I did do it every day. I think she was generous to me in that newsletter, because I think I missed 2 days. I think it was 363 pictures. But some days it's true that I would sit up in bed and go, shit, I haven't done it.
Yeah.
And scroll my camera roll, and very often I'd taken it, I just hadn't sent it in the moment.
So you wouldn't just do a quick selfie of your boobs?
Maybe. Like, look at this handsome man I'm sleeping next to.
I love that. It reminded me that I have a friend who went through cancer, and she set up a group chat where she posted glimmers, and just everybody in the chat just posted their glimmers. And as you say, it was just this stream of, it forced her to look for something bright in her day, and other people could, do them when they felt them. And it was just like the opposite of doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Yes,
I love
it
that.
is. And the thing is we did, when I look back through that chat, because obviously that's our text history, and some of the ones she'd put in the newsletter, I'd forgotten all about them. And that was lovely too. Like, it's cheesy, but, writing a gratitude journal isn't for everybody. But like taking a minute every day to think of one good thing is
that's
good.
So beautiful. We'll put a link to that Substack in our show notes. It's gorgeous.
I have 2 books to recommend. The first is, I just read the latest Lisa Jewell, which I think came out this month.
That's always good to get out of a writing rut.
It's really good.
Although I did read a couple of bad ones.
Yeah, okay. She's back.
Okay.
It's called Don't Let Him In. And this is a blurb. It says, he's the perfect man. He says he loves you. You think he might even be made for you. Before long, he's moved into your house and into your heart, and then he leaves for days at a time. You don't know where he's gone or who he's with, and you realise if you looked back, you'd say to yourself, don't let him in. Ooh. And so it follows kind of different relationships. She always chooses the best character to watch the story unfold from. Its different perspectives. The way she's drawn this man is just genius. Loved it. It was really pacey and satisfying. And again, like I don't persevere with books I don't like. No. So this one
How long do you give a book before you give up, both of you?
I recently got 3/4 of a way through a book and went, I'm just not spending another minute on this. I do not care how this ends. I kept doing that actually with a few really big ones that have come out lately that everyone else loves, and I've just gone, nah, not for me.
How long do you give it?
I keep trying to read the books that you guys give me, and then I'm like, I've got to keep going. It really depends. I always give it more than a couple of chapters. But I also just forget what I'm reading. I think because I've got a Kindle and I'm sort of like reading and then I forget, and then I've got a million half-started books. What about you?
Yeah, same. It takes a lot for me to abandon a book, although increasingly less. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like I used to be like, no, I've started it, so I have to finish it. But now I'm more likely to give it away. But then, I'm a writer and I hate the idea of someone giving up on your book. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you know what? If I've done half your book and you've not got me in, then I feel
your
like
fault.
That's on you.
Is that what you're saying?
Like a you problem.
And a bonus recommendation, Nicole Madigan. She is a writer at Mamamia, and she has published her second book literally this week.
She wrote an amazing book about being stalked.
Yeah. This one is called Torn. It's nonfiction, and it follows 4 women who are trying to make the decision about whether they stay in an unhappy relationship or whether they leave. And it's about addiction and it's about infidelity.
Did you say it's fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction. So they're true stories. And it's about the loneliness of being in a relationship and thinking this isn't right and I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to speak to a lot of out louders where they are right now. So that is available now, link in our show notes.
I'm going to recommend books too, which I think, given what we were talking about, this is relevant, and also it's now given me the point of this week's newsletter, right? We're right about books. We'll put some of those books that we've out louders have said get them out of reading ruts in there.
Yeah.
Because we've asked that question before, because it seems to be the theme of today's show a little bit. But there are 2 new Aussie fiction books that I want to give a shout out to, because we have some incredible Australian fiction writers. We really do. And some of them are very famous and you know their names, and some not so much. But the debut novel from Suzanne Doe is out this week. It's called The Golden Sister, and you might have seen it around because Suzanne Doe is married to Anne Doe. And because he is actually one of Australia's most successful writers, as well as being a painter and a TV personality, people are very interested in the idea that, he's not the only writer in the family.
Yeah, and she's often written with him,
She
hasn't
has helped him turn his very successful memoir, The Happiest Refugee, into a children's book. She's worked in schools and everything, but this is her first adult novel. Anyway, it's really, really good. It's called The Golden Sister, and it's not what I don't know what I expected exactly, because it's kind of a small town story, but it's not in any way twee or cheesy. It's actually quite dark in places, but it's about a young woman who's lost her sister
isn't it her twin?
Yes, in quite dark circumstances. And she becomes obsessed with what happened, which is, in some ways sounds like a familiar trope, but the places it takes her is really interesting. So this young woman becomes obsessed with this to a point that she gets herself involved in a very unsuitable relationship. She has all these interesting kind of clashes with the people at work. It talks a lot. It paints a very good picture about the claustrophobic nature of a smallish town. It's really good. It's called The Golden Sister, and I found that really interesting. And the other one is by Jess Detman. It's called Your Friend and Mine. Now, we have loved her books in the past. She is a beautiful writer. She wrote How to Be Second Best.
Oh, I love that book.
The one with the cake on it. Everyone always says, the one with the cake on the cover. And others. She's a beautiful, beautiful writer. Her latest one's called Your Friend and Mine, and it's quite a gentle book, but it turns out to have a lot to say. It's really about friendship and about the different versions of yourself over the years. It starts with this young woman who gets a letter out of the blue that appears to be from her best friend who died 20 years before.
Oh, wow.
It's really good. They're both great Aussie fiction books. So that was The Golden Sister by Suzanne Doe and Your Friend and Mine by Jessica Detman, and they're both available now.